Welcome to Bad Actors, the Armis cybersecurity podcast and go-to guide for cutting-edge insights and cybersecurity solutions. My guest today is Matt Berry, the Global Field CTO of Cyber at Worldwide Technologies, or WWT for short. Matt Berry, thank you so much for joining me at Bad Actors.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's start for our listeners and viewers. Explain WWT and your role.
Okay, yeah, sure. So Worldwide Technology, or WWT, founded in 1990. So we've been in the industry for about 35 years, which is we're basically a monolith at this point from a technology standpoint. But yeah, we really seek to be the world's best technology solution provider. We primarily work in the enterprise space. So think, the Fortune 500 and even the Fortune 100. We have a presence not only inside of the United States, but also in Europe, in Asia, in Australia. And so what we really seek to do is be a trusted advisor with our customers. We have a lot of very long-term relationships that we developed with leadership at these different organizations, and we really value that position. And so we take a lot of care and concern in trying to understand what our customers' challenges are and what the outcomes are that they would like to achieve. In my role as the Global Field CTO for Cyber at WWT, I'm primarily focused on cybersecurity challenges, but at the end of the day, it's really to drive business outcomes that our customers are looking for. So I work with a number of our top partners to understand where they're headed in what's on the horizon, where they want to go, what are they developing in their solutions to combat a lot of the bad actors that are at work, and then also working with some of our top customers just to develop relationships, share threat intelligence, and hopefully make the world a safer place.
Absolutely. Now, I want to talk to you about your unique approach from sort of consultation through to implementation with your customers. But let's take a sort of more wider lens to start with. We always talk in the cybersecurity world about critical infrastructure, the exponential increase in threats, global problems that we're seeing across geos. It has definitely changed over the last 5 years, and actually even the last 12 months has got the criticality of these things. Let's talk about where the biggest targets are. For your world in operational technology and critical infrastructure, we talk a lot about the medical environments, the manufacturing, financial services. How do you think that threat landscape has changed in the last 12 months? And how do you think as a sort of industry, we can help keep driving proactive threat defense with our customers?
Oh boy, that's a
big question.
That's a loaded question. You're going to have to keep me honest if I don't answer everything right away.
Of course.
Yeah, I think we've certainly seen the landscape change tremendously in the last 12 months. I'm sure sort of the buzzword that everyone mentions is AI and artificial intelligence. From a cyber perspective, to me, it all comes down to data, though. I've seen and I've worked with a lot of organizations that get focused on a number of different initiatives, whether it's the convergence of IT and OT, whether it's mergers and acquisitions, cloud migration, implementing zero trust architectures, which for some organizations, they're on their second or third attempt of trying to do that. But I think for me, it really all comes down to data. So from a cyber lens, we work with our customers to ensure the old CIA triad, the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of their data. I think the challenge that we've seen connected to AI over the last 12 or 18 months is the exponential increase in data that is being created, and also the ability to interact with that data. So, I think that if organizations had a problem with data invisibility before, there is a data tsunami coming, and being able to maintain situational awareness and have visibility across your entire estate is really foundational to any security portfolio or security strategy an organization has.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about this, the data deluge, as they say, because the geopolitical environment is obviously incredibly challenging. I mean, it is daily. We seem to be getting Bloomberg or Wall Street Street Journal articles talking about China and the threat that they have been posing for many, many, many decades on US critical infrastructure and also obviously the federal government. So do you think we've got this dichotomy between trying to secure that data and try and make sense of it, but also go underneath and find out who and what is using that information to provide threats against people?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where the value of some of the more recent technical innovation related to AI and working with data, drawing insights from the data. I think that we are really at an inflection point where we actually have the capabilities and the tools to be able to get that level of visibility to defend against nation states, to be able to secure our critical infrastructure, to be able to identify weaknesses. I think that, another famous triad of the people, the process, and the technology, I think that many organizations, even governments, critical infrastructure, have really been limited by their people. And I think that what I personally have observed over the last probably 5 to 7 years is a lot of organizations have been asking their operators, their analysts to do more. And sometimes, coming out of COVID and with economic downturns and volatility, sometimes to do more with less. So budgets have decreased, the threats have increased, and for many of these organizations, the staffing has not increased. The budget for staff has not increased. So I think that we're actually at a point where some of the tools, while they can pose some pretty significant security challenges, can also provide some pretty massive opportunities for defenders to be able to be more effective, more efficient with the human beings that they have.
And I'm interested in this sort of human being connection. We talk obviously in Armis about the technology and the technology you could use to combat these threats, but ultimately it is, as you say, the people behind it. So do you think there is a lack of, you talked about staff shortages, but is there a lack of education or sort of skilled mindset that we need to sort of approach the new threat landscape that we're dealing with? Or is it a budget, as you say, a budget constraint?
Yeah, I think that we are suffering from a lack of time. I think that I think that on a regular basis, we in the industry, I think there is an overall a decrease in the amount of time that is given for individuals to be able to think, not respond to alerts, but to actually be able to think and strategize, to be able to reflect. So I think it's when you talk about training, I think training is critically important, but I think also if we can leverage technology to offload a lot of the mundane tasks, the mundane research that occupies the time of a lot of these analysts who are sitting in front of a machine, we can actually create margins for them to be more strategic, to think creatively, and also to be able to learn as well. I think there's maybe it's a little bit off a topic, but I think that in the cyber world, it can be very difficult to get training and to really learn about the new threats because you're so busy responding to alerts, to defending against attacks. So I think the more that we can leverage technology to be able to make the operators more efficient, I think that it's going to be good for critical infrastructure. It'll be good for the government, be good for any enterprise, and I think that that's maybe to bring this back to the conversation. I think that's where partners like Armis can help with that, to be able to make them more efficient and help them achieve that sort of that nirvana state of where we need to go.
So I want to talk to you about the buzzword bingo of AI in 2025, the good and the bad. There is a place for it, but how is that going to evolve? How people tackle the education that they need to do, the sort of support that they need to do in their environments for the next 5 years?
Yeah, the good and the bad of AI. I personally think that up until now, we have just really been playing around with AI.
Okay.
As I talk to my kids or I reflect on my own experience, we're leveraging AI to do simple things for us, to be able to, clean up the formatting of this document, summarize this long PDF. In the past, I've taken recordings from conferences, and I run it through AI, and I create custom GPTs to be able to ask questions and
Oh,
get
nice.
insights.
Okay.
But we're still sort of just playing around with it. I watched a video yesterday from NVIDIA, who's one of Worldwide's greatest partners,
Yeah.
and they were talking about how they were training a robot to be able to move like a human being. And the head of the project was saying how, in order to educate and really train this robot to be able to function like a human being, it would have taken, I'm going to get the figures wrong, but it's, relative. It was going to take something like 500 years to be able to train this robot to be able to learn how to function as a human being. You imagine even the learning that a child goes throughout life. You try to get up off the floor, you fall down, you're walking down the street, somebody bumps into you, like on the streets of London. It's all crammed, right? And we're constantly learning and adapting. So to be able to train a robot like this, they said it was going to take somewhere of like 500 years to be able to do it, but leveraging AI, leveraging sort of a digital platform, they were able to achieve that in the matter of a couple months, because they basically created this environment where there was all these digital twins of robots walking around bumping into things, and they achieved hundreds of years of training in a very, very small period of time. So you asked about what is the good and the bad. The good, I think, for operators is they're going to be able to begin leveraging, let's say in the next, probably even the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be advancements in AI. We talk about agentic AI, and as we see that get integrated into security solutions, we're going to have co-pilots and sidekicks that actually are able to do a lot of the mundane work for us, so that those operators, as I mentioned before, can really focus on the critical decisions and actually doing what humans do best, which is thinking creatively and thinking outside of the box. What's terrifying about it is attackers can use this as well.
Yeah.
So, up until now, nation states, critical infrastructure, not only in the US, but globally, they've been the target of APTs and very focused attacks. We look at, North Korea and the work that they do. For many of those targets, it's worth the investment of people's time, whether it's the DPRK or China or whatever hacktivist group. It's worth the investment of time in order to find the vulnerability and to penetrate it. And sometimes that can take months, if not years. With AI, we're going to see that window be able to decrease at an exponential rate,
Yeah.
right? So, so the organizations that have been able to more or less fly under the radar, I call them like the Joe's bait shop, the organizations that like would never historically be targeted by these organizations. Now they're going to become viable threats, because you can unleash agentic AIs that, are wearing their little black hats to be able to, do research, to be able to, test vulnerabilities, and to be able to launch strategic attacks. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think certainly there's some research. There's probably a few cases here or there where things have been seen in the wild, but as a whole, we're not there yet. And I think it gives us a very a nice window of opportunity for partners like Armis, and also for Worldwide, to be able to figure out like how are we going to empower our customers to be able to respond to those threats that are coming.
And I think it is going to be, as you say, one of the biggest questions of the next 12 months. Let's see where we are this time next year and see if we've solved some of these issues. But it is definitely pause for thought in the speed of which they are being implemented and used in a positive, but also in a negative way, I think. So let's talk about WWT and Armis together. We are a partner-led organization, so we are a better together strategy is very much how we see supporting our customers. And I think the uniqueness of what WWT brings to that consultation phase, working with our customers closely, and then working through technology solutions, implementation, and then continuous monitoring and threat management is part of the journey that obviously most organizations want to be on. Where do you think that unique approach is in terms of the trajectory of where people are trying to get to and the consolidation of the technology platforms that people use? And how do you like working with Armis? Loaded question.
Yeah, I think that there's a number of different lenses that you can look at it from. Certainly, for me, coming from an engineering background, I think in terms of, you identify best in class tech, you deploy best in class tech, and then you use best in class tech. That's where my mind naturally goes. I've had to train myself through the years to think through the lens of the business and like what our customers are actually thinking about. So in working with our customers, they're dealing with a number of different issues, not only the technical implementation of a solution, but they're thinking about regulatory compliance. They're thinking about visibility in their environment. You're dealing with mergers and acquisitions. From IT, OT, we're seeing the convergence of those two domains. So there's a lot of business and operational complexity, regulatory complexity that they're dealing with. And we at Worldwide partner with our customers like throughout that journey. So we engage with them early on to help give them visibility and guidance of what is going on in the landscape today. From if the company is in the U.S., what is coming from the White House, what is being discussed on Capitol Hill, what regulatory bodies, what are they discussing, and we really try to help our customers prepare for those external variables that are going to be affecting their organization. Right. And then throughout the life cycle of just their journey as IT and OT converge, you have multiple teams that are collapsing into one. You're dealing with mergers and acquisitions. So yeah, we partner along that way. So on the front end, it's in terms of having workshops and briefings with our customers, sharing threat intelligence with them, highlighting our key partners when it seems appropriate. Like we always try to look for the opportunity when our customer is asking a question, because when they ask a question, then they're open to a response, right? And that I think is the key around driving value, not just going and talking about something, but sort of, engaging in conversation, building the relationship. And when the questions come up, how do I get visibility in this way? How do I deal with this new merger and acquisition? I think that's where we find those entry points to bring in our partners like Armis to be able to journey with us, not just through the technical implementation, but then long-term with our customers.
It makes perfect sense. And I think it's unique to every individual customer and their experience, of course. But I think bringing in that platform of best in class, as you said, your words, is very important to the conversation. As I said before, we're seeing a lot of consolidation in the market with M&A. It's been a busy couple of weeks in that space, but also I think with the budget constraints you mentioned right at the beginning of our conversation, customers are looking for those 3, 5, maybe 7 big technology platforms that they can leverage. And of course, Armis intends to be one of those at the end of it all. But it's an interesting how I think the cybersecurity market in general is starting to consolidate and expand its own offerings. Armis has grown massively from its very early beginnings. So as we broaden out our own product set, the things that we support customers with, hopefully our extended partnership can then leverage more use cases of technology going forward. So I think that's a really good thing to look forward to in the future. Final question. I guess it's a bit of a tricky one because it's very unique to an individual CISO, but I wonder, looking forward, the lens of what we are dealing with, the speed that you referenced to the time to implement and see real change within their cybersecurity environments. Customers are under a huge amounts of challenge at the moment. So if you were a CISO today, what would be your guidance to them? What would be the number one thing you would ask them to consider as they look forward in changing their cybersecurity posture for the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, boy, and it's hard to put that in just a single sentence in one answer. A couple things come to mind. So I think first of all, and this is going to sound salesy, but it really isn't, is leverage the relationships that you have.
Yeah, agree.
We at Worldwide Technology, we're brought in many times to, whether it's a large global bank, whether it's critical infrastructure, they come to us and they ask, what are our peers doing? Because
Okay.
I think sometimes, depending on the industry vertical, and the relational dynamics amongst leaders, sometimes there's healthy information sharing, but also sometimes there's a bit of a challenge of like, what do I share with somebody who could potentially be a competitor of mine? So I would say leverage the relationships that you have. We get pulled in oftentimes to brief our customers and say, hey, this is what we're seeing in this space. This is how we're engaging with other organizations like you. I think the other thing is I think CISOs need to shift their mindset from being focused on just compliance to actually being focused on resilience. So we're seeing a massive shift there. Operational resilience. Instead of just checking a box, how do we ensure that the business is able to actually stand up to attacks that are occurring not only today, but like, do we have a trajectory for, what attacks are going to come to us in the next 12 to 18 months? So I think those are a couple things that come to mind. And then, I would be remiss if I didn't say just caring for your people. I think that I could talk about all the things that should be done in AI, and I'm sure there's other people who are going to talk about that. But I feel like a very critical point, I think, as cybersecurity leaders, we lead people. We lead people, we lead human beings. So ensuring that they feel, seen, heard, they have, as I mentioned before, they have the appropriate level of margin in their day to think creatively. I think some of the greatest innovations that have come in the 21st century and the 20th century were because people had time to be able to think and strategize. And I think that as we move forward, the skill set that we need of individuals in the next 12, 18, 24 months and beyond, we need people who can do more than just mundane tasks. We need individuals who know how to think creatively, who understand game theory, who understand, what attacks are coming in and can be good students of history to learn, what attacks have occurred in the past and where were the vulnerabilities and how can we help our organizations be able to defend against that in the future. And a big critical component, just to bring it around, is being able to ensure that as you said, that 5 to 7 critical vendors from a cyber perspective, you're arming your operators with a toolbox that will actually enable them to be effective at their job, right, to be effective at defending, and to do it without alert fatigue.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that. You very rarely hear people. It's mostly the technology push, but it's actually nice to hear that it's the people first mentality of how you solve these problems, because it is, regardless of the agentic AI and how that goes, and the sentient worry for us all. It's nice to hear that it's the focus on the people and how to support them as they go through this journey. Matt Berry, thank you so much for joining us on Bad Actors. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.